But let's go back to what's going on here in Shechem. So, the law is read. What would that mean for the people that just experienced victory? I think it would very vividly show them that God is the one who granted you victory, right? In fact, in that day and time, it was customary for kings to build these huge stone tablets, magnificent, just gigantic stone tablets, and they would imprint on the tablets all of their military victories. Right? If you were a king in this era, you had a big stone somewhere in your name with all of your victories on it. And so that's what Moses has told the people to do. He said, build this big stone, but don't put your military victories on it. Put the word of the Lord on it. Put the law on it to show that God gave you victory. And so I think it pretty vividly teaches that God is much more interested and centered on us following His law than He is us fighting His battles. Right? That's what Israel needed to know. You got defeated at Ai when you didn't take the Lord's word seriously, but you had great victory at Ai when you listened. Neither battle had anything to do with your military might or your power or your ability. It had one thing to do with it. God had given the instruction. When you listened, you had success. When you didn't, you had failure. And so if you're going to build a monument to commemorate the victory, isn't that amazing that the one thing you put on the monument is the one thing that brought victory? It's God's instruction. It's God's way. It's God's plan. So that's what they do. It's also interesting to note that specifically how they were told to build it. What was the specific instruction that was given? Take a stone that no man has ever touched with an iron tool. That's significant. Right? If you took a stone that some craftsman had carved this beautiful masterpiece out of and set it up, don't you think there'd be danger that somebody would look at that and say, man, there's some beautiful craftsman. Man, there's some talented person. So Moses said, take a stone that no person has ever touched, no person has ever hit with a stone, with a tool. Because it's symbolic of the fact that you didn't win the battle because of you. You won it because of God. So don't set up a memorial that's about you. Make sure, in fact, it has nothing to do with you, that you have no part in it, that it's God. Isn't that the same thing is true of us? You have monuments in your life, right, in a theoretical way. You have scars from times you've drifted away from God's rule, right? I do too. We have parts of our life that are scarred and tainted by the fact that we've tried to go our own path. We shouldn't forget those, but we don't dwell in them. We move on. But I pray also that you have lots of memorials in your life, opportunities to set up times of remembrance. That's a tough word. Remembrance for the fact that God has brought about victory, that God does care about what your life looks like, and that when you follow, it's glorious, it's victorious. There are things to celebrate around every corner when we take seriously what God is doing. But none of that is ever up to us, right? If your life is going well, it's not because you've done it. It's because God has. If your life is a wreck, it's not because, you necessarily have intended to make it a wreck, but it's because you drifted apart from what God is doing. And when we drift away from what God is doing, it's always going to lead to destruction. We've just seen that time and time and time again. So he said, do not get a stone that any person has ever touched with a tool. Rather, get one that has never been manipulated so that it can show that it's only God who did this.